What if the smartest movies were the ones that got called dumb? You think you know 80s sci-fi, but you haven't seen it until you realize Spaceballs was a masterclass in forecasting franchise greed. And The Nightmare Before Christmas? Not just a holiday hybrid, but a prescient takedown of consumerism and identity crisis. But those are mere appetizers. The real shocker, the film that broke brains in 1999, is still waiting in the shadows. Think you can handle a movie that saw the future of media manipulation decades early? Wait till you meet number 3. And number 1? A swashbuckling adventure that predicted the chaos of modern imperialism. This film was too sly for 1975 audiences, but you'll see the truth in every frame. Imagine a spaceship so long that it takes 10 minutes just to see the entire thing. That's the opening gag of Spaceballs, a 1987 comedy that didn't just parody Star Wars, it made fun of the entire business of blockbuster filmmaking, complete with a fictional merchandising campaign that literally broke the fourth wall. And nobody got it. Not then. Critics called it juvenile. Audiences stayed home. The film earned just $38 million worldwide, a flop against its $22 million budget. Today, it's a cult classic, and the reason is simple. Mel Brooks was making a movie about the very thing that killed it at the box office: the commodification of film franchises. The film's most audacious scene? Dark Helmet watches Spaceballs on a VHS tape that shows John Candy's character riding a Winnebago through a desert, exactly as the real film plays out. It's a time-bending meta-joke that would later become standard in everything from Deadpool to Rick and Morty. But in 1987, audiences weren't ready. Even the cast doubted the material. Daphne Zuniga, playing Princess Vespa, admitted she didn't know if the jokes worked. She'd later say, "We were making a comedy that was smarter than the audience gave it credit for." And she was right. The film's emotional gut punch comes from its sincerity. Despite all the absurdity, Lone Star actually saves the princess, says, "I love you," and leaves with his sidekick. It's a love letter to the very movies it mocks. But here's the surprising behind-the-scenes fact. Brooks originally wanted Bill Murray for Dark Helmet. Murray declined, calling the script too smart for its own good. He wasn't entirely wrong. That intelligence is exactly why Spaceballs landed at number 5 on this list. It's a film that saw the future of Hollywood, a future of endless sequels, self-aware marketing, and fan service, and laughed at it before anyone realized the joke was on them. Now we live in that future. If you thought this film being misunderstood because it was too intelligent was intense, wait until you see what follows. A movie so ahead of its time that it actually warped the animation industry itself. If you thought this film being misunderstood because it was too intelligent was intense, wait until you see what follows. A movie so ahead of its time that it actually warped the animation industry itself. When Jack Skellington vanishes from Halloween Town, he doesn't just disappear, he falls into a world that makes his own look like a kindergarten playroom. That's right, The Nightmare Before Christmas is a film so visually and conceptually audacious that it took decades for audiences to fully appreciate its genius. Stop-motion animation was practically a lost art in 1993, but Tim Burton and Henry Selick resurrected it with painstaking detail. Each second of film required 24 individual frames, and animators captured only a few seconds per day. The result? A movie that feels handcrafted in every fiber, because it was. But here's the kicker. Disney nearly shelved it, terrified that its dark, gothic aesthetic would scare children. Instead, it grossed over $91 million worldwide on an $18 million budget, proving that intelligence and artistry could triumph over corporate fear. What most don't know is that the film's emotional core, Jack's existential crisis and longing for something more, mirrored Burton's own feelings of being an outsider in Hollywood. He famously said, "I feel like I'm Jack Skellington." The music by Danny Elfman isn't just catchy. It's structurally complex, blending Broadway theatrics with punk rock attitude. And the voice cast? Catherine O'Hara brought Sally to life with such vulnerability that you forget she's a stitched-together rag doll. The Nightmare Before Christmas belongs at number 4, because it defied genre, audience expectations, and even time itself. It's a film that rewards repeat viewings, each one revealing new layers of artistry and emotion. By the time Jack finally realizes that Christmas isn't about replacement but appreciation, you're left with a bittersweet warmth, a reminder that happiness comes from within, not from stealing someone else's joy. But if you think this stop-motion marvel pushed boundaries, wait until you see what film dares to blur the line between reality and fantasy so completely that it left audiences questioning their own memories. If you thought this stop-motion marvel pushed boundaries, wait until you see what film dares to blur the line between reality and fantasy so completely that it left audiences questioning their own memories. Picture this, a movie where a man goes to Mars for a vacation, but ends up questioning his entire existence. And that's just the start. Total Recall wasn't just another sci-fi flick. It was a mind-bending puzzle that audiences in 1990 weren't ready to solve. Based on Philip K. Dick's short story, We Can Remember It For You Wholesale, the film dives deep into the nature of memory and identity. Director Paul Verhoeven packed it with twists. But here's the kicker. The studio panicked. They thought the ending, where the hero might still be dreaming, was too confusing. Verhoeven fought to keep it ambiguous, and thank Mars he did. That uncertainty is what makes the film rewatchable decades later. At the time, critics were divided. Some loved the action, others hated the confusion. But audiences? They were mesmerized. The film grossed over $260 million worldwide, proving that smart sci-fi could be profitable. Here's a behind-the-scenes gem. Arnold Schwarzenegger insisted on doing many of his own stunts, including a scene where his eyes bulge out in a decompression chamber. That effect? A simple reverse shot of his eyes popping in, then played backwards. No CGI, just brilliant practical effects. And the three-breasted mutant woman? That was Verhoeven's way of saying, see, Mars is weird. But the real genius of Total Recall is how it tackles big ideas without slowing down the action. Are the memories implanted? Is Quaid the hero or a fabricated persona? The film leaves you questioning even after the credits roll. That's why it's number 3. It dared to be smart when Hollywood was dumbing down. For fans, it's a lightning rod of debate. Was it all a dream? But the emotional punch? It's the fear that your life might not be yours, that your memories could be fake, and yet you still root for Quaid to find his truth. Total Recall rewards thinking viewers, and that's why it stays relevant. If you thought this was intense, wait until you see what's next. What comes next makes this look like a simple memory game. If you thought this was intense, wait until you see what's next. What comes next makes this look like a simple memory game. Imagine a world where street rats fly on magic carpets, blue genies break the fourth wall, and a sultan's daughter just wants to be free. Aladdin hit theaters in 1992 and changed animation forever. But here's the thing, this film was way ahead of its time. It wasn't just a cartoon, it was a revolution. First, the animation. Disney used a technique called CAPS, short for Computer Animation Production System. It allowed for depth and shadow that hand-drawn cells couldn't achieve. The scene where Aladdin and Jasmine ride the magic carpet through a whole new world, that was the first fully computer-animated sequence in a Disney film. The song itself won the Oscar, but the tech behind it was groundbreaking. And Robin Williams, the genie, was a risk. Williams improvised hundreds of lines, channeling 100 voices a minute, literally. Animators drew keyframes, then matched them to his live recordings. It was chaotic, genius, and unprecedented. But here's the behind-the-scenes secret. Disney and Williams had a contract dispute. He agreed to voice the genie only if his name wasn't used in marketing, but Disney broke the promise, using his name to sell toys. Williams walked away. The sequel, The Return of Jafar, had a different voice. Years later, they reconciled, and Williams returned for Aladdin and the King of Thieves. The emotional impact? Aladdin wasn't just a love story. It was about class, freedom, and identity. Jasmine was a strong female lead who refused to marry for status. That was rare in the early 90s. Critics loved it, audiences were spellbound, and it grossed over $500 million worldwide. It became the highest-grossing animated film of its time. So why number 2? Because Aladdin didn't just entertain, it pushed boundaries. It made us believe a street rat could be a hero and a genie could be a friend. But if you think this film was intense, what comes next makes this look ordinary. The film that broke every rule, that made Aladdin look like a bedtime story? That's waiting just ahead. Stay tuned. If you thought this was intense, what comes next makes this look ordinary. Some films are so far ahead of the curve they practically invent their own future. The Man Who Would Be King is one of those. John Huston's 1975 epic adapts a Rudyard Kipling story about two British adventurers in 1880s India who decide to become kings in Kafiristan. But here's the twist. At its core, it's not an adventure movie. It's a brutal critique of imperialism. Audiences in the mid-70s weren't ready for that. They came expecting Lawrence of Arabia and got a mirror showing colonialism's ugly face. The film flopped. Made on a budget of $8 million, it earned just over $11 million domestically, modest for a film of its scope. But history has been kinder. Today, it's hailed as a masterpiece. That's what happens when a film is too smart for its time. The behind-the-scenes story is equally wild. Huston had wanted to make this film since the 1950s, with Clark Gable and Humphrey Bogart as the leads. Both died before it could happen. Then, in 1974, he finally got the green light with Sean Connery and Michael Caine. Their chemistry is electric, partly because they were real-life friends, but also because they improvised much of their banter. The most surprising fact? The film was shot almost entirely on location in Morocco and France with temperatures hitting 120 degrees Fahrenheit. Connery and Caine wore heavy wool costumes and fake beards that melted off. Caine later said it was the most uncomfortable shoot of his life. But the discomfort pays off on screen. The emotional impact stems from watching two cocky men get crushed by their own arrogance. It's a tragedy dressed as an adventure. The final shot, and I won't spoil it, is one of cinema's most haunting images. That's why it's number one. Because The Man Who Would Be King isn't just a great film. It's a warning. It leaves you staggered, questioning every empire, every ambition, every man who thought he could be a god. These 5 films weren't just ahead of their time. They dared to be weird, to be dark, to be smart when the mainstream was playing it safe. Spaceballs mocked franchises before they ruled the box office. The Nightmare Before Christmas celebrated outsider art. Total Recall questioned reality before sci-fi got philosophical. Aladdin gave us an animated blockbuster that wasn't afraid of complexity. And The Man Who Would Be King explored colonialism's tragedy with epic ambition. What ties them together is their refusal to talk down to us. They trusted that audiences could handle satire, existential dread, and moral gray areas. They predicted that we'd crave more than empty spectacle. So here's the debate. Which of these films hit you the hardest, and why? Was it the sharp parody that now feels prophetic? The stop motion that proved animation could be art? Or the adventure that revealed uncomfortable truths? Drop your take in the comments, because half the fun of smart cinema is arguing about it. And if you think another film belongs on this list, defend it. We're all here because we love being challenged. Until next time, keep watching the edges. That's where the future hides.